real speakers, real coaches, real investors, real companies. No matter your destiny, all roads lead to Real Leaders Unite.
Thank you, Mike. That's wonderful. It's great to have an office manager rewrite your bio. I have to say, didn't he do a good job? Let's hear it for Brandon. Well, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be in this community, to learn more about each of you, and to experience more time with purpose-based businesses to fill our heart. My hope is that in our time together, either in presentation or afterwards, that you'll get one great idea, one nugget that would be useful and transformational on your journey in your business. Would that be okay with everybody? Great. Perfect. So, selling your business is most likely the largest single financial transaction of your life. I mean, in other words, it is a frigging big deal. And one would hope that after that transaction, it would lead to a life of joy and fulfillment, right? But when most owners look in the rearview mirror, more than 3 in 4 say they regret selling. Shocking, isn't it? And let's face it, regrets zap the joy out of life. And as a person who wrote the book, The Intersection of Joy and Money, I'm pretty attached to people having joy in their money life. So I'm here today to share with you the 3 must-haves that are essential for having a 360-degree view so that you know what you're getting into, so that when you walk out of your business, you have a path to no regrets, to a life of joy and fulfillment. I've worked with business owners just like you for over 40 years, and I've seen a lot of transitions. They take an immense amount of time and energy. And unlike selling a publicly traded asset where liquidity is guaranteed at any moment, selling your closely held business takes your attention for years if you do it right, at least for a year if you do it in a short term, and that's a very short exit. And the less time you give yourself and the less preparation you give yourself, the truth is the less likely you are to achieve the results that you expect from your business, or that you've worked so hard. Some of you spent your entire life building these businesses. So why sell yourself short? Do your homework and get what you have earned by building this business. So before we dive into the 3 must-haves, let's look at some of the common mistakes that business owners make when they go to sell their business. The first one, the first mistake I see is business owners tell me, I'm never going to retire. Now this is virtually every baby boomer I ever met, right? They say, Mackey, I love running my business. Why would I ever retire? And I say, because you won't always feel this way. You know, things will change, and someday you'll want to slow down. And sure enough, that's been true. But I was working with one of my very first clients who was a never retired business owner. And the way he tells the story is I was in his office one day, and I leaned over his desk, I put my finger in his face, and I said, if you don't start saving for retirement, I'm going to fire you as a client. When he told me that's what he remembered, I was shocked. I don't quite remember it that way, but I do remember cajoling, begging, pleading, whatever it took to get him to save every year. And he did, and as he looked at 65 in the mirror, he said, Mackey, I'm ready. He sold his assets, he closed his doors, and he went into a life of retirement. Now, he had a lifestyle business, and so that's why I was so adamant that he needed to save early and often, because I knew there would be no payday at the end. How many of you can guess, or what can you guess about, not how many of you, do you have a guess, let me put it that way, how many businesses actually sell? Let's say, of the ones that go to the market, what percentage of businesses actually sell? Anybody got a guess? 2%. Well, anybody else got a guess? 20%. Bingo, Carolyn, it's 20%. Yeah, yeah. That's like 1 in 5. 1 in 5 So your chances of sale are small, really, when you think about it. And with him, I knew he had a lifestyle business. There was going to be no chance of success. And often, that's the problem. The business is built around the owner's lifestyle, and there's no residual value. The next business owner I see is the sell to the next generation business owner. These are the people who come in to see me and say, hey, Mackey, I'm transitioning my business to the next generation. And I say, well, have you asked the next generation if they want your business? And what do you think their answer usually is? No. I said, well, that might be a good start. But more importantly, have you asked yourself, is the next generation the kind of generation that is capable of taking my business into the future? That's more important, really. Who's got a guess on what percentage of businesses succeed into the second generation? How much? 27%? Wow, 30%? Depending on which study you looked at. Bingo, you're right on, David. Way to go. Way low. It's 3%. Yeah, I knew it was a really small number. So family succession is not guaranteed. You know, and not every next generation wants to own the business. You know, early on, I helped a client buy a business from his dad. And he had gone to work for his dad. He became a superstar salesperson. And the dad was ready to exit, and it just made sense. So he bought the business from his dad. And when he thought his exit would look just like his entrance, he didn't have children, but he had a passel of nieces and nephews. And one by one, he hired them all, and one by one, they left. So when he was in his 50s, I said, I think we should figure out what to do with this business. And he gave me the, I'm never going to retire line. And I said, okay, well, maybe and maybe not. How about we prepare for maybe not? Or maybe you will. And he said, okay. So we did a market value assessment. And I said, you know, it looks to me like the best buyer for your business is someone who wants your market share. And we can count the number of those buyers on 2 hands, less than 10. He said, I know what to do. He left, and I didn't see him for several years. When he next came to see me, we met in my first floor conference room because his hips and knees wouldn't let him get up the stairs. And he said, I'm having a lot of trouble getting around. My sales are declining. My profits are declining. And I'm concerned about what I'm going to do about the business. And I said, well, I think that's a good thing. We looked at liquidation, just if we liquidated it, and we thought, you walk away with $100,000, maybe $200,000. And he said, Becky, that's less than I paid Dad. I said, yes. Well, let's update your market value assessment and go back out to those potential buyers. So we did, and we had asked for letters of inquiry, and we got 3 letters of interest. Of that, we helped him negotiate $1 million exit. So he was pretty excited. That was his very good news. His bad news was if he'd done that earlier, he probably walked away with something more like $1.5 million. So timing can be everything, and you want the timing to be your timing, not your health's timing or not the economy's timing, but your timing. You want to sell at the top, right? So if you're a next generation owner, just have a contingency plan, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. The next owner I see is every business owner I ever met. This is the tax-adverse owner. This is the owner who doesn't want to pay taxes, which, you know, let's face it, most of us don't like writing big checks, but if we're going to get a big check, we're going to write a big check. These are the owners who come in and see me, and they slide the contract across the table, and they say, Mackey, make the taxes go away. I'm like, well, you've done the deal now. There's not much to do other than sit down, have a good cry, and write that check. If you want to do tax planning, that happens back when you do your personal financial plan. A long time ago, you start thinking about what you're going to do about the taxes when you sell your business. So tax planning is early and often as well. The next owner I see is the low down payment owner. Now this is the owner who wants to sell to a family member, to a friend, to a key employee, and that particular person isn't very bankable. In other words, they don't have enough assets, and the bank won't loan them the money to buy the business. And the owner says, that's okay, don't worry about that, you can pay me over time. So they issue a contract, and the new owner takes over. And I've seen this happen quite often. Sometimes people get paid everything. Sometimes people get paid nothing. And quite often they get paid a small fraction of what they've agreed to. Because the truth is the new owner is coming into your business that's taking over, has to run the business better than you did. They have to make the same amount of money you did in the business, plus they have to make enough to pay you. And they're usually not prepared to do that. So it's good to have heart, it's good to have, want to help somebody else, but we have to put our own oxygen mask on first and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Because again, this is your largest financial asset, the largest transaction you're ever going to get into. So you got to take care of yourself. The next owner I work with is, I think, my most difficult owner. It's the one who says, I know what my business is worth, Mackey. I know what my business is worth. I was like, okay, great. So I know what my business is worth because so-and-so told me that it's worth 5 times EBITDA, or I've added up my debts and I know what I need and it's worth that. Or a similar kind of owner is the I hope business owner. Now this is the owner who says, oh, Mackey, they see their business through rose-colored glasses and it's way up here, but today it's like here, So they hope their business is worth this, but the truth is it's worth something quite less. But whether you think you know or whether you hope what your business is worth, the person who's going to decide what your business is worth is the buyer. That's who's going to write you the check, and that's who's going to establish the value of your business. So my goal for being here today is so that instead of being a never retire business owner, a sell to the next generation business owner, a tax adverse owner, a low down payment business owner, an I hope or an I know business owner, you can be a well-informed and prepared owner with a clear path to no regrets and to joy and prosperity after the sale. Would that be okay? Great. So let's look at the 3 must-haves for a never regret sale. I don't think that was me. So the first one is a financial systems analysis. The second is a personal financial plan. And the third is a market value assessment. So let's look at each of these components and how they fit together and how they help you walk through a sale and have no regrets. Okay, so for a financial systems analysis, in this case, what we're looking at is really diving into your financial system. The purpose of which is so that when you get into due diligence, which will happen when you enter a contract for sale, the buyer is going to send in their accountants and say, go look at their books and tell me what's really there. And they're going to pick it apart, and they're either going to now probably negotiate your price down. Because that's what they're going to do. They're going to go and find all the ghosts in your accounting closet. Well, we would suggest that you clean up the ghosts in your accounting closet way prior to this. And there's some advantages to do it in the short term. So if you don't, you're going to have a lower sales price. So let's talk about what is an FSA and how does it benefit you. Well, in a financial systems analysis, we look at each part of the financial system. So very simply, we start with accounts payable, for example. We start with purchase order, we go to payment, and we look at the process of this. And we look for weaknesses and inefficiencies. Then the same thing for receivables and month-end close and so forth. And we map those and say, where can we make the process more efficient, and where can we improve the weaknesses? Efficiencies generally put money on your bottom line right away. We just finished an FSA for a large training firm, and when we went in, the bookkeeper had all kinds of spreadsheets and paper and all that was going along with the accounting system. And once we put all the new procedures in place, she went from working 40 hours a week to working 20 hours a week. She was thrilled. She only wanted to work part-time. The company was thrilled. They got half her paycheck back. So there was some immediate impact on the bottom line. But in addition, the weaknesses that you find, those are times, you have weaknesses when you have conversations that look like, well, I don't think this is quite right. And you're looking at your financial data and you go like, I'm not sure this is right. This isn't really what happened. How do we know this is? I think something is wrong. Anytime we're having conversations about our data being correct, we're wasting time and energy. The truth is we want to have good data and we want to use that data to move our business forward, to move it in some way that if things aren't going like we want to make new decisions so we can get better results. But we don't want to spend time talking about whether the data is correct or not. And if we fix those weaknesses, we won't have that. We'll be sitting down, talking about our data, looking at our metrics, looking at our forecast and saying, here's the story of my business. It's either what I'm looking for or it's not, and then we'll move forward from there. If you have better reporting, you're going to make better decisions, and if you make better decisions, you're going to make more money. So if you do this 3 to 5 years before you sell, you'll have more profit going for those first 3 to 5 years before sale. That's more money coming to you, right? And then when you sell, because EBITDA is a big component for what most businesses are worth, you'll sell for more. So for a small investment in a financial systems analysis, you can expect significant returns. So that's the first thing. And then when you get into due diligence, you won't have to be negotiating your price down. The second piece is a personal financial plan. Now, who's got a guess at, see how many people can get this number right. Who's got a guess on the average percentage of wealth for most business owners? What's the percentage of their wealth held in their closely held business? What's the percentage of wealth for an average business owner based on their wealth? 90%. 90%. You're very close. 80%. So whether this transaction works or doesn't work determines which goals are achievable and which ones are lost forever. So it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. So, to do a financial plan, we have to have an effective personal financial plan. So let's talk about what's effective. Well, first of all, you know it's not going to be effective if you go to see the planner and the planner says, come back to me when you sell your business and then we'll talk about it. That's not going to be effective. What you're looking for is someone to define your wealth gap. The wealth gap is the amount of wealth that you have outside your business and the amount of wealth that you need to fund your goals. That's how much your wealth gap is, right? So if you have $500,000 in investable assets and you need $3 million for your plan, your wealth gap is $2.5 million. That's what you hope the business is going to bring, but now you've defined what it is that you need from the business. So let's talk about the effectiveness of the plan. The first thing I always think for a financial plan is you have to start with intention. I mean, we're all purpose-based businesses here, right? And we all know how important business or purpose is in our business. So why would we not have purpose in our financial life, in our personal financial plan? So we start with intention, and we build our goals from that intention. Because the truth is, goals don't make a lot of sense in any except within their purpose in our lives. So that's the first piece. The second piece is that it has to take you to a place of possibility. You know, so many times when we're working in finance, we're working with the problems. We might go to our CPA and we want them to reduce our taxes. And we go to see an insurance agent and we want to buy some insurance. And we go to see our investment person and we want them to invest our assets. All of these pieces have something to do with our financial wealth. But the chances of getting them coordinated in a way that's best for you by having these three different separate conversations and focusing on the problems of each of those areas is pretty unlikely. You really have to integrate all these things together. You know, you have to integrate what's happening over with your insurance, with your investments and your taxes, because that all is impacting your wealth. And at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for. What's my wealth potential? So it has to be integrated, and we have to bring things together. We can't work on a broke-fix model. You think the standard Western model for just about anything is broke-fix, right? Whether we're going to see our doctor, or we're talking to our CPA, or we're getting our plumbing done, or we're fixing our car, we tell people what's broken, and we expect to get a fix. But that's focusing on problems. And again, we want to focus on possibilities. What's the possibility of my life? And the third piece is agency. You know, when so many people are dealing with their money, they tend to give agency to someone else. And if you think about this, I think it's almost impossible. In fact, I would say, from my standpoint, I think it is impossible to be prosperous, to feel prosperous, if you've given agency over your finances to someone else. I'm not saying if you don't like to do investing, you can't hire someone to do your investing. But what I am saying is that when you decide, when you've done your personal financial plan, and you've looked at your investment philosophy, you've actually understand, because a planner has taken enough time to educate you about your investment, about the investment choices that you have, that you can say, I see why this investment choice works for me, and I see how it's going to make my life work. I understand how it fits into my goals, and it makes sense. In other words, you're retaining agency. You're saying, I still have the power. This is my choice. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the third piece is a market value assessment. Now, the market value assessment is to define the value gap. So we talked about the wealth gap in your personal financial plan. The value gap for a market value assessment is the difference between what your business is worth today and what is the best-in-class business in your industry worth. So let's say your business is worth $5 million based on where it is today, but a best-in-class industry like best-in-class business in your industry like yours would be worth $8 million. That means your value gap is $3 million. Do you think knowing your value gap might be helpful in closing the gap on your personal financial plan? Right. So if we needed $3 million, it might be easier to work on our business than to go try to invest and save $3 million in after-tax cash flow, right? So this value gap, and when we do the market value assessment, it will also tell you about attractiveness and readiness. So that tells you, it actually gives you a roadmap for how to make your business more valuable. So what happens in a market value assessment is very much like a business valuation. Anybody here ever have a business valuation? No? So the difference in a business valuation and a market value assessment is really simply the focus. In a market value assessment, you're looking at the marketplace. So in a marketplace, we have internal buyers that could be, friends, key employees. In certain states, a co-op can buy your business, and you can have ESOPs. Those are internal buyers. We also have external buyers. Those would be same-size competitors, people who are moving into our industry, people who are upstream of us, consolidators, private equity firms, people who are buying in our industry. And so what a market value assessment does, just like a business valuation, it starts with your earnings and your cash flow, but then it says, let's look at the marketplace. Let's look at who's buying companies like yours, and let's look at their appetite and what they're paying. And so what the market value assessment, it says that in your business, these are the kind of players based in your industry who are in your marketplace. This is what they're paying, and this is what you can expect to get for your business. And here's how you get the most from it. Here's your attractiveness. Attractiveness is the kind of things you would expect. Are you growing? Do you have a niche? Is your margin strong? Is your profit strong? Do you have a strong management team, or are you very much tied to the owner? Those are the kind of things that someone's looking for in terms of attractiveness. Is this a good market? Is this business growing? Does it have a good niche? Does it have a good place in the marketplace? And then, of course, readiness is, can you walk away from the business? Most people don't want to buy a business that requires that you stay there, that you are central to that business. So your own function of inside the business is super critical to understanding how to make the most money, or I would say getting yourself out of the day-to-day business of your business is critical to making the most on your exit. But the market value assessment gives you a plan there. This is where you are, and this is what you know how to go about improving so that you can improve your market value. Does that make sense? So do you see how these three pieces begin to work together? So we look at our personal financial plan and we see what our wealth gap is. We looked at our market value assessment. We know what our value gap is. Now we're beginning to see who I might go to market with. I see how much money I need in my personal plan. And I've got my financial systems analysis done so that I know that when I get into ready to sell, I'm going to be able to get what's on the contract that's offered to me, which is a very big deal because if I'll tell that in a minute because I'm going to tell you a story. Let me stay on point. So it sounds like a lot of work, right? The question is it worth it? Worth it. So let's look at a case in point. So I recently helped a business owner exit his business, and this is how it started. He called me and he said, Mackey, he said, I've decided I'm going to do an ESOP. I'm going to do a 30% ESOP. And I thought, well, I'm not sure why you're calling me. I'm not an ESOP advisor. He said, I've already hired an ESOP advisor. I'm thinking, well, I'm even more confused. He said, but I'm not sure an ESOP takes care of me. And I thought, now I know why we're having this conversation. He wants to put his own oxygen mask on first. I'm really glad about that. So he said, I want to take care of my people. That's really, really important to me. And I think for the owners I've worked with, that's very important to almost all of them. They want to take care of their people. But I want to make sure this is taking care of me. I said, well, I've been nagging you for years to have a personal financial plan, so we need to do that. And we need to do a market value assessment. And we talked about what those were, and he said, okay. Now, I had originally begun working with him 7 years before. And the first phone call that we had 7 years prior was a phone call that went like, Mackey, I have crappy accounting. I've worked with everybody in town to try to fix it, and I'm tired of working with people in town. Would you come fix it? And I said, absolutely, we can fix that. So 7 years ago, we did a financial systems analysis for him. We worked with his management team to educate them about how to read the financials. We put in key metrics. We put in a income forecasting system and a sales forecasting system. And the management team loved it. They began to take a lot more ownership in the business and to really help drive the business forward. And they said, you know what, we're going to teach the entire team the same thing. So the management team took over and they taught 70 blue-collar workers how to make this business more effective. Now, for the 5 years before we cleaned up the accounting, this business had made around $100,000 on the bottom line. Their sales had grown every year, and their sales at that point were around $6 million. But their bottom line was just never much more. A little bit, maybe 120, maybe 80, but always right around $100,000, no matter what happened on the top. Once they educated their management team and they educated their team and they started paying quarterly bonuses, their income grew 12 times. 12 times. 100,000 to 1.2 million. That's after the employee bonuses, right? So we're paying employee bonuses. So that's why he was really interested in doing the ESOP, because he understood these people could drive the business forward. But then he realized that with the ESOP, they weren't going to get a paycheck, so they might not be so happy with it because that money was going to go in their retirement plan. But in any event, so we were in a good place from that standpoint. We worked really hard to already improve the bottom line. So as we worked on his personal financial plan, what I discovered is the reason he was reluctant is he only had about $500,000 of personal assets. And so, you know, one of the things that holds us back sometimes with finances, we're kind of embarrassed about where we are. But in our fear, which is an embarrassment, we sort of stay stuck rather than saying, you know what, I'm going to walk through this and I'm going to get some help. Well, what we looked at is, well, he had $500,000, but he needed about 7.5. So he had a big wealth gap. The good news is, with the growth in the earnings of the company, I felt pretty good that the market value assessment was going to come through. So as we looked at the market value assessment, what we found is that there were 3 international competitors that were eagerly consolidating his industry. So the ESOP was still an option, but the ESOP, the price paid in an ESOP is defined by federal law. So, you know, it doesn't matter what the market, what's happening in the marketplace. And he was at a high. I mean, there was definitely a lot of activity. So that was defined, and that he was looking at that. But we said, with these international competitors looking in your marketplace, I think you could sell for 15x. So 15 times EBITDA. And he looked at that and he said, well, at 15 times EBITDA, I think there's enough money in my personal plan. I can give some stock to my key employees. They can pay the tax, right? And they can fund their retirement, and I can get what I need too. So that all looked good. So we had his plan all keyed up based on this. And so we hired a broker, went to market, closed for 20x. 20x. He said, Mackey, this is stupid money. So he said, every time I see him too, he reminds me that he has no regrets. But he made his gift to his key employees, and the owners came in, the buyers came in. Of course, they thought they were going to find all kinds of ghosts in this closet and accounting closet, and they were going to go negotiate the price down. But there were none. They looked hard. I mean, you could tell they were a little on the frustrated side because they were expecting not to have to pay 20x. But he did close 6 months later at 20x and got 90% of his money. A year later, he got the rest. So these 3 things, where they can seem overwhelming, first of all, they're not going to happen all at the same time. And if you do it right, you really want to take your time and plan this exit very strategically in a time that works for you. But these factors can all work together, because then if you think about it, now you have your clear view, you know, what your alternatives are. If he'd walked into an ESOP and sold to the ESOP and not really considered anything else, and then found out what was happening in his marketplace, do you think he would have had some regrets? Probably significantly, significant regrets. So those 3 pieces can really make all the difference I've found in having a sale and being confident that you did the right thing. So here's what I'd like for you to take away. First of all, don't let sloppy accounting derail your sales price. And also, don't let sloppy accounting derail your earnings, your current earnings. Get your accounting in order. I've looked at a lot of books, and I got to tell you that for the clients I work with, 60 million and under, 9 out of 10 of them have a few ghosts in the closet, sometimes more than a few. In fact, I had a guy call me last week. He said, somebody told me to call you. I said, what do you need? He said, well, I had a contract for sale. And he said, but my partner and I have been keeping our books. And he said, they came in and looked and they walked away. But I have a really good business and I really want to sell it. He said, so can you come fix it? I said, well, if I fix it, it won't be sellable tomorrow. So he didn't call me back after that. Develop your personal financial plan. If you go to see a planner and they say, I can't help you till you sell your business, you got the wrong planner. Find a planner that knows how to work with business owners that'll help you identify your wealth gap. Know what it is, and then you know where you're headed, what you've got to fulfill. Timing can be everything. Don't let your health or don't let the marketplace determine your timing. You want to determine your timing. Get this all taken care of. That's why you want to do these pieces. Focus on your bottom line. Owners love to talk about their sales, and they love to grow sales, and we all are focused on getting that next deal. That's super important, but it's the bottom line. Top line is for show, bottom line is for dough. And bottom line is primarily going to drive the value of your business, so focus on improving your bottom line. Grow smart. And lastly, enjoy a life of no regrets. That is my hope for all of us. Okay? So as we close, thank you.
Real speakers, real coaches, real investors, real companies. No matter your destiny, all roads lead to Real Leaders Unite.